Good morning, everyone. I'm in Springfield, Missouri. It's a stormy morning. The main squall line is going to go south of the city here, but we're getting some pretty good rain. And this is the severe weather outlook for the next 7 days. Here's the visible satellite loop this morning, Friday morning, showing a pretty active area of thunderstorms here, a mesoscale convective complex, or what you'll just see here in a minute as a squall line. And that is certainly front and center here for today, moving across the central U.S. Here's a look at the radar as it existed right before 8 o'clock. So we got a pretty solid squall line running from, it looks like around Cassville, Missouri, down to about Fort Smith, and then trailing off into southern Oklahoma. And there have been a few severe thunderstorm warnings along that, even a couple of tornado warnings down in Oklahoma occasionally. But that has been it. And for areas up here, this is just going to be a pretty good rain. There is a severe thunderstorm watch in effect for extreme southwest Missouri and points out ahead of that squall line. It's been a very electrically active squall line, too. This is the lightning loop for the last couple of hours, showing a lot of strokes. And we've got some pretty good rumbles of thunder right here in Springfield here this morning. But that wasn't even the main line. That was just a separate little area that broke out. But this is going to be heading down into the length of Arkansas certainly today. And it's the back end of this out here that is again a cause for concern. You probably saw on social media the wedge tornado they got around Morton, Texas yesterday, and it was captured well by radar too. That same area is under the gun again today. Here's a simulated radar, and it is showing the development of this squall line overnight, and it's moving into Arkansas. That is nailed that pretty accurately. And then we have more activity again blossoming out here in the high plains. So just wash, rinse, repeat for many of these areas. This is going to affect southern Missouri and Arkansas again later on today and tomorrow again. And I'm going to show you, first of all, the 500 millibar flow as it's forecast to be right about now. We have this little shortwave trough right here. So that's what's helping to push these thunderstorms along. And thunderstorms themselves have actually helped to initiate this. It's kind of a weird feedback thing, but it is definitely real. So as this moves along, that's a severe weather threat for this area out here. And then we still have upper level winds out of the southwest here, minor little disturbances, perhaps in the wind field, kind of subtle little short waves, kind of hard to identify, but they're there. So that's why this area here is still under risk for today. And, if you've been watching this video all week, I've been saying that I was pretty sure that by the time we got to Friday, Saturday, even Sunday, that these severe weather outlooks would be upgraded and moved and expanded, and that's exactly what's happened. So here's the forecast for today, Friday. A long area of severe weather possible across a corridor of the United States from New England down through the Appalachians, and really picking up around Tennessee, Nashville, and going due west. And we eventually get these level 3 out of 5 area risks again, what looks amazingly like yesterday's, actually. And for Texas and parts of southeast Colorado. So the threat is again just kind of repeat. I'm going to zoom in on this here for areas out to in the western U.S. here. So Colorado Springs is right here. I think Springfield is right about there. Springfield, Colorado. And Lubbock is under the gun again today, Friday, for severe weather. So these are enhanced areas. And then we have this level 2 that goes, and most of this here is out ahead of that squall line. Not a whole lot of additional development is forecast. Same with this tornado outlook. It's really talking about the squall line here, at least for the first part of the day. Now, later on tonight, remember, all of these Storm Prediction Center forecasts are based on a 24-hour forecast or less. So, in other words, the outlook, this tornado outlook, it says Friday. It's actually valid till 7 a.m. Saturday morning. So this, a lot of times it's meant for, the typical activity. In other words, these thunderstorms are expected to flare up, as you saw on that radar outlook later on today. But it certainly could go into the nighttime hours. So while this risk is, yes, talking about that current squall line, it could be talking about future storms that roll in here later on tonight. So keep that in mind. Same with Nadocast. It's really focusing in on the current squall line right there. and then the activity that's going to flare up here later today. But I wouldn't put it past any thunderstorm that can travel across Kansas or Oklahoma to be severe enough to at least put an isolated tornado threat in there for late tonight. In other words, early Saturday morning. Here is SIP's severe weather probability for today. It nails the Texas area pretty well, in Colorado. And it also wants to really enhance the thunderstorms out here later on tonight. So the SPC's forecast is up in here, so it is shifting that a little bit further off to the east. On the CSU model, the tornado threat is kind of a broad brush 2% threat that doesn't emphasize areas of Texas too much here. But as you saw, the SPC feels a little bit differently about that, boosted that. Yeah, sometimes it's the other way around. This is Friday's forecast. The hail is going to be very large in West Texas, and the severe weather threat with these constant squall lines moving through. The wind threat is pretty maximized north of Oklahoma City, let's say between Oklahoma City and almost Wichita, Kansas. So that's an interesting development there. Now, if we take a look at the 500 millibar winds for Saturday, this little wave that I just showed you for today is here. A new one forms here. So this keeps the severe weather in play in this entire area. Note the big changes occurring up here. That's going to carve out another area of large troughiness in the plains here that will shut down the severe weather. Certainly up here it already has. So that's a trend that will continue. But we're really focused on this little short wave here because I want to show you the forecast for Saturday. It does show actually a little bit of activity possible ahead of that big jet stream change in the Dakotas, but the 1 and 2 level severe weather outlooks encompasses much of southern Missouri. And if you're in Springfield, I'll do a heads up video on this later on this afternoon, probably after the morning model data comes out right around noon, something like that. I'll talk more about our specific threat. And also there's a rain threat with that too. It's raining again at our house. I think at our house we probably have had about I'd say about 12 to 13 inches of rain in the last 2 weeks. I live in southeast Springfield. Anyway, so that's the threat for tomorrow. There is a 2% tornado threat in almost the exact same area, so it's something to be looked at. Certainly for Saturday, the CSU model agrees with that 2% assessment and ups the ante a little bit for areas of the Tennessee and Ohio River Valley where it puts a 5% tornado risk. And it keeps basically the hail and the high wind threat in this corridor right through here. But the wind threat, especially because these tend to form these bow-echo squall lines, which are really good at producing organized straight-line winds out ahead of them. And here's the forecast for Sunday. Still really the same areas. It hasn't changed a whole lot. Again, heads up weather. I'll talk about this more detail in southwest Missouri here later on today, but we are in a slight risk of severe weather for Sunday as well. Could have room to enhance that a little bit with the higher risk down there in Texas again, and then a new introduced slight risk area along coastal areas of the Carolinas, even interior a little bit, and the southern half of the state of Georgia there. That's on Sunday. Here is a CSU outlook, and it puts the tornado threat on Sunday way off in Texas, and kind of suppresses the hail and wind south and southwest, actually, into Texas and Oklahoma on those days. So basically, the action, I think the center of action is really going to be more out here, even though the areas out here are under a slight risk. And then on Monday, SPC has pulled the trigger on a 15% severe thunderstorm risk. That means any type of severe weather, whether it be 1-inch hail or larger, 59-mile-per-hour wind gusts or higher, or a tornado. That includes southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, eastward through the gut of Mississippi and Alabama. Then by Monday, things settle down and go south a little bit more as the influence of that strong jet that I showed you starts to really carve out cooler, drier, more stable air. And so that's Monday's outlook there, and that's what CSU says about it. And then we go to Tuesday. A great suppression, I think. Again, like always, there'll probably be room for highlighted areas of slightly enhanced weather and all that, but things really settle down by Wednesday. And finally, a week out, Thursday, We start to pick up more activity in the northern plains, and that's indicative again of the jet stream changing and those upper level winds starting to increase. I'm going to show you the weeklies here on the 500 millibar mean in a minute, and I'll show you what I think is happening. Anyway, here is Supercell Composite Outlook for June 6th through the 12th. So that starts today. You can clearly see, and again, this is 7 days worth of just totaling up the percentage chance. So it's not a specific forecast, and in fact, this area here weighs heavily on the next 4 days and not so much on the last 3 days of that outlook. You just have to know that when you're looking at this. And then it shifts north, June 13th through the 19th. This has been a constant trend. This is into the Corn Belt, into the Dakotas, fitting perfectly with what is expected to happen in June. Even more so here, the third week of this forecast, which is actually pretty much the last week of June. And also, you don't see supercell indices go up very high in the Northeast, but you're starting to see that a little bit more. So that, I think, is an interesting development. I'm going to go to the next slide, and I realize I probably left one out or I put it in the wrong order, but this is that mean I was talking about. Did I keep it? Oh, yeah, it's just in the wrong order. Anyway, this is June 9th through the 15th. So this is what this is dew points, and also not just the dew point, but the anomaly, meaning how much higher or lower when compared to normal is it. So through this period, that goes beyond everything I just talked about. So I usually talk about the first 7 days of severe weather outlooks. This starts after that. So there's a really high dew point anomaly here. That's actually good because parts of this area of the country are very dry. So what this just tells me is that there's a supported flow of moisture off the Gulf up into New Mexico, Texas, Kansas, and Colorado, and that will continue. However, if you look at the jet stream through that same period, what you see is actually a ridge of high pressure building here. So that the orange means an anomaly on the up, means that these lines are going upward, and that's a little bit above what you normally see. But this is still a jet stream flow that's infringing upon Montana and Idaho, which is why the probabilities are going to go up here. Remember, this is only week 2. Week 3 showed that probability really going up. And while we have higher moisture values here, that dew point map I just showed you, more subtle features. You know, you have little waves and some flow in the upper atmosphere that could be enough, what we call bulk shear, enough to support severe weather. So that's why this area here is still going to be under the gun the week after that, but then I think it really shifts north after that. So stay dry, stay safe, especially in these wash, rinse, repeat areas where severe weather and heavy rain continues to fall. And I'll bring you another severe thunderstorm outlook video tomorrow morning. Thanks for watching today's edition of Severe Thunderstorm Outlooks. This is published every day after the morning Storm Prediction Center update. Also, remember to check that site off on day 1 because they update it fairly frequently. If you like this video, please like it. Also, you can subscribe to the channel for more content just like this.